Brooke, welcome so much to the Bhakti Women Summit. Thank you so much for being with us.
Thank you, Shay. I'm so happy to be here.
It's a joy to speak with you. Let's get straight in. I would like to ask you, you've said that we are sort of all collectively experiencing like a rebirthing, sort of undergoing a reclamation, a massive shift for us collectively as a society. I'm wondering if you could talk to that and also speak to the concept of what it is to sort of rebuild or rebirth something from a reality that is breaking down.
Mm, okay, that's such a full, deep question.
Get
Um,
him, get him right in there with the deep.
yes, I'd like to come from the tantric perspective. So I'm a practitioner of Sri Vidya Tantra of the Himalayan tradition, and one of the things that I feel I've been primed for in this life and that I've really stepped in as Dharma is this philosophy and worldview of Tantra and its recognition of we are continuously being born and dying. And even throughout life, we have many little deaths. And a lot of our experiences in life is to learn how to die and to learn how to be reborn and to continuously shed the skin and the layers so that we can evolve as higher versions of ourselves. And we've been in a stagnation due to, industrialism, due to patriarchy, due to these older systems that have created a narrative that we have all adhered to. And a lot of us unknowingly were born into this world as these beautifully naive beings, feeling trustful that what we are being fed as information is true, when truly it's just a select few's narrative. And so, what I feel is happening, this reclamation, is that narrative is getting ripped up. We are starting to see the creases, we're starting to see the gaps, we're starting to see the old texts, that are, it's misinformation, it's not in alignment with what we're really feeling in our hearts or seeing in the world. And one of these huge reclamations is how we are so disconnected from our world and how we're so disconnected from our own bodies. And that the systems, even though they were probably designed to help us, have skewed so far away from us and helping us. And they've taken on this me individualism power trips that it's just doing more and more harm. And so, in the tantric lineage of practice and worldview, it's our birthright to be able to be empowered as individuals, to live a life of fulfillment, freedom, and ease, to be able to experience love and to serve. And when we don't have the framework, even basic needs being met, even an honoring of how we look in the color of our skin or what is our cultural background, then that's doing a very, it's like a crime against sacred law. It's a crime against nature. And so the tantric practices, and this is what I bring forward in the Dharmic Revolution, which we'll talk about here a little bit more, is to really come back into sacred law and right alignment with nature and the seasons and just the rhythms of the universe and ourselves. And so what I feel is happening is really, the past decade, 2 decades, we've been waking up. A lot of people have been waking up. I would say we could go back further than that. I was raised by a feminist, and she was one of those, bohemians sticking the flowers and the guns, like, war, we are not going to have this. And really understanding that the suppression of the female body and the feminine wisdom was not helpful. And so, I was raised by that attitude of we can do better and we can stand up for ourselves and we need to cultivate our voices to do so. And so, I know your question was very long and broad, and I hope I'm answering it. We can refine it here, but I feel that the waking up in this reclamation is largely for women to find their voices. We are not in a position that serves the greater whole. We don't help, we don't serve by being suppressed, by feeling less than. And So it is time for us to wake up and stand strong in our light and voice our concerns and actually be the ones coming out of the closet, because we're often the powerhouses behind the men. And in doing that, we will start to create a new reality of holistic leadership and like a humane, sacred living where the spirit and science are met with equality and love and um, masculine, feminine, like the whole full spectrum, right, is enabled to come forward when we are given that chance also. And it doesn't mean at the expense of men or that it needs to be power over, ooh, women are now in charge. I feel, and again, coming back to Tantra has this whole terminology called apurva, APURVA, which means the practices alchemize and we are enabled to create new realities from something that has never been in existence before. And so I think that's what we're being called to, is like maybe it was a matriarchal society before, then it became a patriarchal society. Now we're like identity, masculine, feminine, like what is all that?
Yeah.
Let's just be. Yeah. So there's a lot there that I just shared. Hopefully that answered something.
Oh my goodness, yes. Um, I guess I have two questions stemming from that because that beautiful concept apurva, am I pronouncing that okay? Yeah.
Mhm.
Um, so that's creating something like brand new. So we can't even imagine what that is, like with our minds anyway.
Mhm.
And so how do we move towards that consciously when it's something that, because it doesn't exist yet, we can't even mentally conceptualize?
Mm, I love it. I think that there are a couple of ways. One, it'll happen to us whether we like it or not. And this is called in the Hatha Yoga Pradipika. So this is an ancient tantric text around Hatha Yoga. They talk about tapas, the three fires or the three pains. And this is physical pain, environmental pain, or spiritual pain. And when we are out of alignment with nature, when we're living adharmically, one of these pains will wake us up. And we'll see from the hardship, the suffering, and the woe another way, right? We'll notice how we've been habituated or whatever we've been doing to ourselves, usually like not treating ourselves correctly or to others is wrong. It's not in alignment. And so Mother Nature comes like a tough mama and she's like, I'm going to reveal to you another way to do this. And so we get to experience that on a very just practical, tangible level. I know people who have had bouts with cancer, they wake up and then all of a sudden they're like, oh my gosh, I've been living life all wrong. I'm going to sell all my belongings. I'm going to go on a pilgrimage, for example. Who knows? Now that's like a small, I would say, like a smaller version of new reality. Tantra, when you're an advanced Tantra practitioner, we're even working with the subtle forces of nature to truly birth new realities. But it's also the empowerment that we get through the practices that enable the luminous mind to really light up. And this is where the bodhisattva comes from. There's an aspect of the mind, the higher mind called buddhi, where we start to see things and we can create from this higher wisdom. And we can maybe utilize all these skills and tools that have been hovering in the background or we've been trained in, but we haven't had the courage to apply them yet to then, you know, make things happen. And I'll go into an old story where I really feel this is it's at the heart of it all, where not only it talks to birthing the new reality, but it talks to the discipline of the practices that get us there. So that's really what the Hatha Yoga Pradipika is talking about. When you do Hatha Yoga, when you live Ayurvedically, you are aligning yourself, you're setting yourself up to flow with the forces of nature. And then her, in her evolutional process will help to bring forward the next levels, the next realities. But this is a story that comes from the Srimad Bhagavatam, and it's a story that it's really close to my heart right now. One of the reasons why it begins with the world becomes consumed in the primordial waters. So the waters consume material existence. And as you know, we've just experienced like a double storm. It was a hurricane with a storm front, like one attached like a tail onto the next, and we were just completely consumed in water. And what it resulted in this ancient myth was that Brahma, the creator, was floating in this abyss, confused and didn't know what to do, and probably just floated around for a while. And that is what happens when we're in crisis. We're just like, whoa, the shock, what just happened? Water storms just hit. We're floating around. And then he heard two sounds, and the sounds were ta, pa. So ta and pa, and he remembered. And this tapas, is a practice that in the yoga tradition it means to heat. It's friction, but it's the friction that grows us. It's the spark of the fire that we can then start to see more clearly, or that friction that then burns the dross, and it's allowing for the clarity for us to see. So it reminded him, this is the creator, I'm floating in the abyss. It reminded him of she, I think a lot of these gods are just like, they're just not, they're they. Um, but reminded them that to do practice. And so pranayama, asana, this is how the myth goes, and the navel-centered practices, because it is very well known in most of our ancient traditions that in order to move energy, in order to get strong, to build capacity, to clear your mind, whatever it is, to evolve, you do so through your navel center. It's also how we connect to the earth, we connect to our mother, we get a source of nourishment, right? And so he does all of these practices. And as a result of the tapas, the boon was that he was able to create what he wanted to create. So that new world, that the dream in his heart, or however you want to look at this, was able to be rebirthed. And so he, in his humility, however, realized, first of all, thank you, gratitude, universe, for allowing me to now create, to remember to create. But may I do so without pride. And I love this story because, first of all, I feel that tapa is when we are lost, when we're tripping up and we're just like maybe in a funk. Like I shared with you, we've had a very tumultuous over 2 months here of recovering from a natural disaster. And now that the urgency has passed, people are really like, oh, okay, now what am I going to do? How do I deal with all my emotions? There's grief, there's anger, there's everything coming forward. And so the remembrances to be able to do the disciplinary practices that make you strong. So in a very simple way, this is go to sleep at a good hour, eat regularly, right? And then if you do know yoga asana, you can do these navel-centered practices, Agnisara, Uddiyana Bandha, and these create a heat and a friction that clears the dross, that allows a clearer seeing because of that gut-brain axis connection, so that the mind can become illuminated and we can then not be haunted by past, anxious about future, but we can be clear about the present of the what's next. And what I love about this is that I saw in our natural disaster new worlds being created left and right. So that Hatha Pradipika little thing, like all these fires, happen. That environmental catastrophe, nonprofits started to blossom all out of the woodworks. Leaders rose up that you would not expect to be leaders, mostly women that run houses. And I was just like, yes, seeing these mamas in action, you go girls, and they're taking the front lead and making shit happen. And so we have the capacity within us that sometimes the natural disaster will wake us up to realizing, and that's one way. But then the other way is to step into your practices and actually do the disciplines that make sure your brain is firing optimally, your body is strong. And what happens on a subtle level is you start to have a capacity that can break all the old paradigms. It can break the limitations. It can break the chains. And you next you have the courage, the clarity, and the capacity to dream up the next world into becoming.
Yeah, wow. And what's so clear to me through all of that is we don't have to know. We just do our practices and we trust, and it comes. Yeah, wow. Brooke, that's beautiful. Thank you.
Mm.
The awakening is uncomfortable, right? For a lot of people. It, like you say, it might come in the form of a disaster, some crisis, or multiple crises, which is what we're really experiencing now as a collective. Or it might come sort of on a more individual level, or just sort of a one day you realize, oh, actually, these systems are all set up to exploit and to separate. So because it's difficult, what I see is that there's sort of this realization and then this cognitive dissonance of, oh, I
Mm.
don't want to see it. I see it, but I don't want to see it. So I'm going to tell myself that I can't see it. And so for someone who's just right at the beginning of that awakening, what is your advice?
Mm. One of the things that I found really helpful, and that what I saw that was really helpful, and it brings me to community. So I don't feel we can do it alone. I feel we can on some degree, but I feel that the power of the media, the power of the governments that have small agendas for the 1% in mind and in their own, view of goals of the future, right? Like that's why we are experiencing so much cognitive dissonance. It's like we're being told one thing, the actions aren't happening, we're seeing something, we're being told no, that's not true, and it's not resonant with reality. And so when we are feeling in that way, I do feel we need to listen to our hearts. We do need to do our practices. Again, these disciplines, they help us create a stability and an anchor so that we can understand the clarity of what's true and untrue. And we can also kind of lean in on when the emotions are taking charge and they're a little wavy and stormy. We're not dragged down by their drama, but instead we can be like, oh, that doesn't feel right. So what am I going to do about it? And then the doing can often be seek someone who knows a little more than you around this topic and talk with them. So education is number one, highest priority. And finding people of like vibration and like hearts and really start to have like think tanks, and or community gatherings and talk these things through, because I believe it. We have to deal with this at a family and a community level right now, because the great powers that be aren't really always having us in mind. And that's what I experienced with this journey post Helene, was that I had a good amount of skill myself, but not as a first responder. I'm not trained as a first responder. However, I was able to reach out to people who I knew had those skills, listen to them and learn from them. I showed up to a couple community gatherings at Firestorm Books here. It was a bike ride away, so I was able to show up to that and I really paid attention and learned the little bits of, oh, okay, that's what I need to know next. This is what I need to dive into a little bit. And so I would either go home, sit with it, do a tiny bit of research. Didn't have a lot of bandwidth for that because we were in urgent emergency response. However, just by me having that interest, what happened was, and again, I really feel like these natural disaster calamities, events, crises that happen, we're also gifted with so much spiritual energy. There were so many omens, like I can't even list them all. But what would happen was, it was like the right person would come and they would have this skill or at least the knowledge. And then I'd be able to either link them up with the person who needed it, or sit at their feet and learn for a moment, or guide if I had the wisdom, you know. So yeah, I think it's this togetherness, and we can often isolate and think we have to. At first, we get prideful and our egos take over, like, oh, I can do it all.
Yeah.
Or
Yeah.
I'm not good enough and I won't do anything. I'm going to crawl under the couch. Neither is going to serve us. Yeah. So, but we each have our part, just like the ecosystem. We each have a part in all of this. And so to find our part is the dharmic alignment. Right?
Well, that's exactly what I was going to ask you about next, is what is the Dharmic revolution?
Whew, yeah. So
Another,
again,
just another little question.
yeah, I'll try to say it as like an elevator pitch or in a nutshell. But so the Dharmic Revolution came about 2 years ago when I was trying to systematize the yoga, Ayurveda, Tantra, and herbology that I've been teaching for almost 3 decades now, so over 2 decades. And what unfolded, I actually went camping every week that I could in the summer. So it was like one weekend a month, and I would just go camping and just like basically pray with nature. What is it that I'm doing here? How can I bring this forward in a way that's like a model that people can understand, a methodology that makes sense? And it was just so right in front of my face. It was so there because I've been doing it for years. I just never looked at it in this light. We all do it, kind of. And what it is just aligning with the seasons. So that's the first part of it. When we truly align to in the fall, we come back home. We come to our kitchens. We're taking the harvest. We're bringing back this love and inspiration of cooking, of nourishment. And we're coming back into our healthcare practices, our body practices, which is a nice, we could call it like a pratikriya, counterpose from summer, where we've maybe been like, all over the place and adventuring and whatnot, So it's coming home to self, getting back in your body, taking care of body. And then each of the seasons, it requires a different lens of being. And we know this in Ayurveda, we know this in traditions that are like even paganism or, the ones that follow agriculture, right? So we are aligning with the seasons in a way that support the creature body the best. Now, that's the first part of it. But what is so unique about what Tantra offers as an alchemy and as an ancient system and an alchemy that's so hidden? So many people still don't know really what it's about, right? That there are these techniques and tools that we absolutely need right now. They are the treasure chest that we're looking for. And if someone were to try to just hand out the skills and the tools, it's not gonna, it'd be like, here are all these ingredients someone's never cooked before, now make a meal. So what I did was I organized this ancient system called Sandhya Yoga, and this is a tantric alchemy system that awakens Kundalini in a systematic way, in a very beautiful, safe, practical way. And it starts with your nervous system and your mind. Once that's stable, it gets your capacity stronger, greater life force energy, more prana. And then there's an alchemy that happens with the moon and the sun. So that mind and the prana that invites the fire, ignites that fire. And it's that same fire of courage, grace, clarity of mind, passion, service, and new realities. And so I just aligned this Dharmic revolution with the seasons. And what I'd been noticing for decades prior was that a lot of our yoga practices have not been held in the soil, in the arms of its sister Ayurveda. And so a lot of people have been trying to do advanced pranayama or advanced yoga practices, or maybe it's not even advanced, they don't even consider it advanced, but if you're practicing 5 days a week and you don't understand the alchemy of what's happening, all of a sudden you're having Kundalini experiences, and it's not good. It's disruptive, it's distractive, and the energies are skewed. So this Dharmic revolution is to wake people up to the potency of yoga, to actually say, hey, this isn't child's play here. There's a system and a methodology that we need to follow and honor the body and the awakening and capacity of your own nervous system to be able to take in the charge of all of this energy, and to know that there's energy, to know there's spiritual energy and potential here that can give you what are called siddhis. So you can actually start to live like a sage, live like a love bomb, and like really make beauty in the world. And so I've overlapped the two, which is just the seasonal flow with the tantric alchemy, this codified system called Sandhya Yoga. And so we start in the fall with kind of this embracing the sister sciences in a very grounded way, living your Ayurveda, but the very basics of yoga through the lens of the 5 elements. So knowing your constitution, being able to design yoga practices that really support your unique body in your unique environment, right? And then right there, if that's as far as you get, it's like, oh my gosh, your life already is so much better. And then we go into the winter, which then we fall into the moon realm, and the moon is all the mind, the nervous system. And it's just a perfect time to do that because we're already hibernating, or we're not. Society is like, no, you have
Yeah.
to work. Right? So it's a bit rebellious. It's a revolution. We're like, slow time, rest time. I just heard someone call Christmas Restmas, and I was like, yeah, that's that's what we're doing now. It's
That's
Restmas.
great.
So it's a very practical way to organize these really treasure-filled practices in a way that align with the body and nature, in a way that nature is holding us and we're not the doer. And that too, it becomes a revolution because we're always feeling that we have to do and we have to figure it out. We don't. If we're just doing these practices, right? And then in the spring, it's all pranic practices. I bring in the plants and the spirit of the plants. That's prana. Prana is awakened Shakti, it's awakened Kundalini energy. So when we are doing practices that alchemize the dross, we're tossing the karmas in the fire, so to speak, or really, and we're doing these ceremony rituals, embodiment practices, and we're waking up that spiritual energy. The next thing that happens, the very natural alchemy that unfolds, is the fire. And so by summertime, or the summer of life, we could think of it, we are just giving of service. We are loves. We are living our passions and living our dharmas. And that too is a revolution. So yeah, it's a revolutionary process because we go in a cycle and you learn the methodology, and it's every year, you just go back to that same cycle with that treasure chest of practices. Never boring. But it revolutionizes old ways of being, and it's really helping to create and cultivate the new paradigms by empowering people in their skill sets to then do their unique work and talents. So I want to see more leaders that have kind hearts and more educators that have a ferocity of understanding policy and aren't afraid to speak up, things like that.
Yeah, yeah. And what I love to hear about that system is that it is so deeply immersed and like it deeply recognizes that we are not separate from nature, like we are nature. And so, of course, it has to be cyclical because we are cyclical beings. It's not like, oh, I like this practice, I'll just dabble in this, in some sort of random manner. It's like, no, this is a deliberate discipline. Yeah, beautiful, beautiful, Brooke. And what about Dharma on sort of the sort of individual level where people have their own sort of magic gifts, their own talents, the reason that they're here or the reasons that they're here in this world? Does the sort of realization of that kind of come up through this process?
Oh, 100%. Yes. Yeah.
Yeah.
And we also kind of take the charge out of it. It's kind of like, I love to equate it with when you find a plant, when there's like a plant in mainstream and they're like, oh, this has every single antioxidant. It's going to, be the one to treat against, aging, whatever it might be. And then there's so much pressure put on moringa or blueberry. And, so dharma can be such a loaded word.
Yeah, it's like, what's my Dharma? What's my Dharma? I've got to do it. Ah. Yeah,
And
you need another stressor.
you feel like a loser or you're hopeless until you find it, right? So that's how I felt. And that's why I just feel like I want to take that, release the valve a little bit so we can sigh and realize. I have a really dear colleague I work with, Michael Van Sciver, and he actually shared we do a cleanse together 2 times a year. It's called Navaratri, and we open it up to the public. And he shared that Dharma is a frequency. And I was like, oh, Michael, I love that so much. That's true. I've always felt, since I've learned more about Dharma and how it's not just path, it's not just vocation, it's not who you're meant to be when you grow up. Not necessarily, although in the traditional sense, yes, that's what it means. But it is like a chapter, and it can be stepping stones. From my own experience, for 4 years, I was a stay-at-home mom. That was my dharma. I had to do that, and it really benefited my family. It wasn't what I knew I needed to be doing in the world to give to the world as a vocation. So I had a lot of friction because I didn't understand that this is just, it's necessary. And, it's okay. I will still be alive in 4 years that I can offer this. For some reason, I was thought, what if I don't live
Am I
to?
even myself anymore?
Yes, yes. Who am I? So the chapters can be these stepping stones that are curating you into the fullness of the life that you want to live. And I believe that part of this is it's our duty. So this is another word that Dharma means to uphold, right? It's like a foundational upholding. That's one of the words to support. That's it, to support. And if we try to jump into the thing without having the skills to get there, we won't have the support that we need. And so often our journey is getting that support. And so it can feel very adharmic, but it doesn't have to if we can expand the vision, expand our ability to see the whole, and know that Dharma is actually four things. So, Dharma is the ability to feel that support, it's the ability to feel pleasure. So, being passionate and feeling pleasure around what it is you're doing. It's the ability to be true to yourself. And like you have these particular skills and talents, you were given them for a reason, so use them. And often we don't feel that those are valid enough or that we could be selfish enough to do that thing. But I know people, in their midlife, they decided I'm going to leave my corporate job and I'm going to become an artist. And that's when things happen for them. That's when they become a millionaire and, can be a philanthropist and serve many, many causes, for example. Or I also know the other side of things where people are yogis and they're having to work a day job as a medical assistant and they are not loving it until they realize they let it go. They try to just be a yogi teaching in the yoga studios or doing Ayurvedic consultations and they realize this is really hard. I'm not an entrepreneur. I'm suffering, and so they go back to their skills, yet with a new lens. And they're able to bring in the concepts that they've learned from yoga and Ayurveda. Maybe that ripples out into their office and other people are learning from it. And then the whole like pleasure, there's a pleasure, there's that purpose. You're like, oh, I feel really alive because I'm actually helping people, and I think that's a piece of it is when we're giving back, there's also a sense of fulfillment there. But the fourth of the soul's desires that actually defines Dharma is this freedom. And when we are truly living in our skills and talents and on purpose, and we're fulfilling our purpose, we feel really free. And yeah, so that's really the Dharma of the individual is to really recognize, are you in a stage? Are you living it? If you are, start to be appreciative of it, right? I've had to kind of call some people out and be like, I think you really are living your Dharma. People like amazing house, and maybe you're actually kind of happy, like all these things. And they'll be like, oh, wait a minute, I think I am. Yeah, and to not put so much weight on I think the older traditional view is if you aren't doing a massive amount of work, if you're not constantly busy and stressed, you're not doing it right, or if you're not making a ton of money, or if what you're doing you love so much, but nobody else really sees you, you're not like in the limelight or on social media, doesn't mean that you're not doing your Dharma. Yeah.
Yeah, and I really like that reframe because I can see that Dharma, when it's sort of defined as purpose, it's like the conditioning that we have from our capitalist sort of upbringing, pardon me, where it's like I need to be doing, doing, doing. What can I extract from myself? Like my Dharma is like it sort of gets that lens of, like it's almost like commodified. But the way
Yeah.
you've explained it, it's like, no, this is everything and it's beautiful and it flows. Mm,
Yeah.
yeah.
I like that reframe. Yeah. The extraction and transactional culture of your own soul. No, that's adharmic. So
Mm,
that would be such like just a little, if we were to take away a little prompt right now, sitting with, are you feeling that the purpose you're doing right now, the work you're doing right now, is extracting your soul and your blood and life force, you know? Is it a transactional relationship? Is it competition? If any of those things are the intention behind your work, that's adharmic. Yeah.
And come back to that idea of the support. Like you are supported and you support. It's, again, it's community. Mm.
Yeah. Yeah. And it might just be shifting that lens for that, you know, where maybe we are like, okay, for example, I mean, I can give you myself, for example, I've run a school for many years. I've run teacher trainings for many years. What I realized years ago was that I was at the head of this thing, and I was exhausted. And I was I felt like the machine behind it all that was, you know, doing the marketing, doing the presenting of the teachings, whatever it might be, calling in the colleagues. And that's when I realized like we are missing out on one of the main resources to really have impact and to really have a joyful and pleasant life. And this is the collaborative nature of other people, right? And so we as a community become a great grand resource to affect change or to bring forward education or policies or whatever it may be. And that's what I experienced again here with Helene, where again, I'm not a natural, I wasn't trained in first response, but I have a natural capacity to actually be very on with a very sharp mind. My executive functioning was on from like day 3. I was in shock for a couple of days, but then I realized people are missing. This is not okay. And I had hundreds of people in my contacts and we didn't have power. So, but we could somehow sometimes get texts. So I was just checking in on people. These kinds of things enabled the ability to start to understand, okay, you over here, you have access to water. You over here, you have heat. You over here, you speak Spanish. We need Spanish translators, you know, and like this. So it was that kind of togetherness that then this greater Dharma of our community unfolded because we recognized that we each had resources that we could bring together in a way that could serve everyone and not just the individual. And that's where, to go back to, I think, your first question or maybe second question, which is, you know, how does crisis create this like regenerative new level of being? And that's how, like, we start to realize, oh my goodness, my neighbor is really awesome, you know, or someone across the street that I have known a little bit. I might have talked a couple times on my dog walk, you know, like, oh my God, he's a brilliant engineer. And he just rigged up all of our houses with a drip system that helped us collect water while we didn't have water for a couple months, you know, so it's just beautiful. It's really beautiful. Yeah.
And I can hear that you've connected with people that you might have like sort of vaguely known or wouldn't have otherwise have known at all. And now you're in this, you're in it together. And so community in that sense has become really broad. Like it's not just everyone the same as you, same as you, same as you. And there's, like it's all kind of cookie cutter clicky. It's actually like a genuine, everyone's here, everyone has their own unique way of contributing, and we're all different, but we're all the same.
Yeah, and there's depth in that. I'm such a big fan of depth. So to understand, you know, Will across the street, like I know he makes good garden beds. I know he can like build cool things, but to understand not only does he have the capacity to be an engineer in a time of crisis, but he had the willingness to then go and scout and like drive places that are really scary. Like we have landslides, half of our roads are gone. You know what I mean? It's really intense here, and yet the fearlessness. So I know their characters now. I know, you know what I mean? It's like you start to see who someone is in their complexity. And what I love about this too was it helped blur so many damn lines, so many lines. Like again, I worked on this response uh, helping many organizations with search and rescue to supplies to housing to repair everything. And what I saw was the blurring of the boundaries of the lines that divide us, that is largely perpetuated by capitalism and mainstream media. I know a lot of the, we call them the good old boys and even the veterans, they do not have the same political stance that I do, but I am so deeply indebted to these people and I'm so grateful and I will totally have them over for dinner,
Mm,
totally have beautiful conversations with them and they will with me. There's no, it erased so much of the crap that, yeah, that we don't need right now in a time where Mother Nature is saying, hey, wake up. You don't have much time here with the beauty in the world and the abundance at the level of peace that I've been giving this to you. We don't have a lot of time. And I know I'm not being a Debbie Downer here. I think I'm just being factual.
yeah.
Like, let's enjoy this. Let's rise up. Let's get our skills strong so that we can be empowered to do the right thing now. And I do believe that there's still time to reverse a lot of what's going on. Uh,
Mm. Yeah,
yeah,
and I can hear in what you've said that in having to come together in the way you did, it erased those perceptions of separateness, based on red versus blue or whatever, because you had to work together, to survive. And because, I mean, I'm based in Australia, so I'm not sure what it has been truly like for you because I'm not there and we've only got what our media here tells us. But sort of the perception that we have is that, you were abandoned by the government, in the sense that there was a lack of preparedness for something that was largely predictable and then a severe lack of response. So would you speak to that and how community had to rise up from that, if I've got that right?
yeah. And I'm just one opinion for this, but I
Yeah.
would say um yeah, there are a lot of little aspects to that. We were not prepared for this. We are actually not in an area that ever gets anything like this. We'll get flooding, little bits of flooding, but only around the flood prone areas. So we have a great river called the French Broad, South French Broad, that runs through miles and miles and miles, stretches through many counties of our Western North Carolina valleys and mountains. And it is known to rise when the waters come. So a lot of our businesses and people, we don't live in these areas, or if people do, they know to evacuate. And so those were the people that had evacuation notices. Now, with that said, our entire region was hit. Every single water that's like a little creek was all of a sudden a raging ocean. You couldn't see the end of, you couldn't see land. It was insane. Land is like flooding down, landslides nonstop. So what happened was, even if the government could get here, they couldn't. We didn't have the roads. All of our roads became washed away. There was one road. So what I know is that it did take a couple of days. We were in the dark. We were in the dark for a couple of days. Even our phones were on SOS, and a lot of people still have trauma around that. Um, when we were in that dark, that's when it was really clear that we were alone and that nobody really knew what was going on. So I think it took the world a hot minute to wake up to what was going on. When I started to talk with emergency operator dispatches and getting into the heart of, like, I'd have to, again, I'm just texting to try to meet need. I'm on search and rescue in the beginning. And so I am being linked up to firefighters, to emergency operations centers where they were washed away. The power's been completely out. Even all of the systems that are naturally set up for disaster had no communication because everything was washed away. It was that level of disaster. So, about 6 days into it, and I'm talking to an emergency dispatch, and she's like, I live 3 hours away, but they have flown us in to be able to help. She's like, I don't have any connections for you. I don't know where you can get the supplies. I'm at a loss here. So it was that kind of conversation. National Guard and FEMA did come in. they came in and they did help. FEMA did help a lot. And I know that there's a lot of people that are saying FEMA didn't help, and that's crap. FEMA did help a lot, but to their capacity. You know, a lot of, again, the areas they couldn't get to. And because a lot of these organizations have so much bureaucracy, they couldn't just act with impulse. So this is where community comes. We're just like, screw bureaucracy, we're just going for it. And you see a need, I'm going to get there. If it's by mule or horse, I will find you. So that's at the level of what we were working with. And in that light, we were able to see how, you know, sometimes the organizations that are primed for this, it takes them a hot minute, you know, and then when they do that, maybe they run out of funds, or, you know, they come and then they're like, Red Cross was here, for example, but they didn't have the addresses of people. They didn't have the ability to really know how to get the supplies that they had access to. Same with the Army and the National Guard and the veterans and all the cage. Like, we had all these beautiful, beautiful teams of people from all over the nation come in trying to help. They didn't know where to go. And so that was the main problem. So even if they set up supply centers, we couldn't get there. Roads are washed away, cars are gone, you know, no communication. We don't know where these supply places are. So it was just so much of that. And but what happened was, you know, the people like me who aren't trained in this, we just stepped up. We did the work that was needed. Then we started to realize, oh, here is someone online now that has skill in this. So I'm going to talk with you. So that's how I started to talk with all of the firefighters and, you know, and then the emergency centers that were actually starting to have an organization. And I remember it was like a week and a half in, and I was working with, I call her the Chariot, Hannah Stutz from Jack's Stables. She came with a whole chainsaw crew, horses, ranch horses, and everything self-contained in a trailer. So she didn't need to borrow power or food that we didn't have at anybody's home, and she could do search and rescue. And when she came, she didn't know where to go. So this was part of what I had been collecting, addresses and people and whole neighborhoods of who needed help. And then I'd find the organizations to link them in. And so with Hannah, so she came and I was like, oh my gosh, this is amazing, because I have an elder over here has a tree through his roof, you know, or another elder had his cows escaped, the whole fencing went down. We had, you know, numbers of people that couldn't get off their mountain, totally trapped families, you name it. And so I would talk with Hannah and she'd be, okay, well, where do I need to go? And so part of what my job was to help her find the right route, what is safe. The mud was toxic. We live near certain areas are near mining, where old mines were. And so like a lot of the toxic debris came up and it was eating through boots. This is where you have to, you know, like really it's a wake up call to how badly we've been treating our planet. Um, but what happened was we finally, I brought Hannah in, found a place for her to go, and a number of places kept sending her. And that's when the FEMA and the National Guard were like, you're not going in there because the roads are too dangerous. And so that's when I think they met a lot of resistance where people were like, who are you? You know, we're doing this. We've been the ones that have been taking care of our people for over a week. And who are you to say we can't go in there now? But what I realized with that was that same girl, Hannah, has POTS disease, and she worked herself so hard. So that's a piece of it. When you're in this emergency response, you overwork yourself. So I didn't hear from her for a day, and I had her on emergency location service so I could track her wherever she was and make sure she was safe. I mean, remember, this is my Chariot. She's rescuing people, so she's going into danger zones, and I wanted to make sure the horses were okay too. And she didn't respond to me for a full day. And I was like, Hannah, are you okay? Are you okay? And she texts me back, I'm dying. And I was like, I think that was when I lost it, like everything, all the chemicals of adrenaline just. And I was like, are you serious right now? Like, tell me, are you joking? Are you telling me the truth? And didn't get anything back. And so that's when I had to call my networks. So I'm like, all right, Katie over here in like Warren Wilson area, will you send an ATV to go check on here? Here's where she's at with her GPS because I had her on location. Anyway, so while they're doing that, I call National Guard because that's 911's not working, right? To see, okay, I have a person, she might be in a really bad danger. Anyway, that was my wake-up call because she finally responded back, I'm okay, I'm just on IV right now. A nurse is right here. I overexerted myself. I was like, girl, I had National Guard about to find you, all this stuff. And anyway, but that's when I realized, yeah, there are other people that are more designed for this than us. And so that's when I started to post, please, don't get frustrated when National Guard says, no, you can't come in. Like right now, we can't go into these places, but here are the other ways that you can help. And so I think a lot of what we learned in this situation was how, as a layperson, to work with an organization that's already in existence, to recognize that a lot of the organizations are not talking with one another. There are a couple of nonprofits that are forming right now that are trying to form a communication platform called SOS Platform is one of them, to enable the organizations to be able to communicate with one another, and it's HIPAA regulated. So say, for example, everyone's address is in there. We know their demographics, we understand their need, and Red Cross could get there, if that's what's needed, whatever it might be, but their personal lives, their personal health, everything is protected with this service. So it's those kinds of things that we were realizing this is lacking, but oh my gosh, this person has a skill. They've just created it, so that's,
Yeah.
yeah.
It's like you were taking the resources and adding the community.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, and then I think it's inspiring community to learn how to be resourceful.
Mm-hmm.
So what I've learned from this is like as a yogi, as a tantric, as a teacher, educator, who I've led programs, I've led retreats, I'm a natural guide or mentor. I now need to know more about the world. I need to know more now about, for me, I have like an extreme interest now in like policy and how to prevent more damage with Mother Earth. So I don't know if you've heard of the Bioneers Conference in California. So that's a resource that I've been going to, and I've been listening to talks. And like last night, I listened to a talk on how I think 75% of our energy crisis could actually be changed. Not like us having to abandon our ways of being and like letting go of all of this stuff, but literally drastically changed by just switching everything to electric. And this might be common knowledge for a lot of people. It's not common knowledge for me. I actually just was about to buy a stove last year, Black Friday. I was taking advantage of that. And I decided to go with an induction stove instead of a gas stove. And now I've found out that was actually the best thing to do because it's not polluting our environment. And when we are bringing in appliances in our households that last 25, 30 years, we only have as a human race probably 25, 30 years to really be able to affect change before the temperature reaches too high and more of these storms exacerbate. So yeah, things like that we actually can do. Get rid of the propane, get rid of the natural gas, and switch everything to electric. And then the more we do that, the more wealth is accumulated. It's a fantastic talk. I can't remember her name, but I can give you that later. I was really
Oh,
inspired.
great. Thank you.
Yeah.
Well, on that and on learning, I'll finish with our final question, which is like, what are you reading right now?
Oh, I love to escape a little bit in my books, although
Yeah,
I
great.
also be a complete nerd. But the book that I'm reading now is really lovely. It's Lisa C, and it's the Tea Girl of Hummingbird Lane. And
I've heard of that. Yeah.
have you? Oh my goodness, I love it so much. So it's a historical fiction, um, and it's about a woman from a tribal village in China who is who has been grown up with the whole tea making um, experience before it became a thing. And it turns out the whole book is all about pu'er, like pu'er tea, but from the lens of the woman and the woman's plight, the woman's suppression, the woman's stepping stones through education into empowerment, into Dharma. Right? And I love Lisa C's work because it's often with similar themes like that. And this one, it's just, it's good.
Yeah. Oh, beautiful.
Yeah.
Pardon me, I've got a little cough today. Thank you so much, Brooke. That book sounds gorgeous. And the conversation that we have shared has just been so illuminating. So thank you very much for the time that you've given to us. And my goodness, for everything that you have been doing in the last couple of months, in the last couple of decades. Such a gift to the collective, to the world. So thank you.
My pleasure. Thank you so much for having me, Shay and Katie. I'm so happy to be here.
Yeah, it's been beautiful.